Good afternoon. For today's presentation, I will summarize the chapter I contributed to Sherry Shapiro's book, Dance in a World of Change. I will then update the piece with new findings from my current national study of boys and young adult males in pre-professional dance training in the United States. When Boys Dance, Chapter 5 of the Shapiro Anthology, explores dance education and training experiences of young males, looking specifically at how boys dancing is both a form of cultural resistance and also an important means for males to share a more common humanity through movement and expression. American society's dominant ideas about gender and masculinity play large roles in shaping boys' lives in dance. Although research at the time the chapter was written indicated that 50% of male dancers in the United States were non-heterosexual, the dance community has been relatively silent on the subject of gay males in dance. This chapter documents previous research on male youth in dance, though limited, that indicate prevailing social stigma, narrow definitions of masculinity, heterosexist rationales for males in dance, and internalized homophobia in the field itself. I argued in this chapter that the experiences of dancing males provide an important vehicle for challenging dominant notions about gender, privilege, masculinity, sexual orientation, and the male body. While dance in many cultures has and continues to be viewed as an appropriate male activity, the Western European paradigm situates dance primarily as a female art form and has done so since the 18th century. Over the past decade, researchers in dance education have gleaned considerable energy from the area of social foundations in education, especially in the realm of schooling and its effect on gender identity. Gender and its social construction play significant roles in students' participation in and attitudes toward dance study. Beginning dance training as early as 3 years of age, girls, unlike boys, often grow up with dance as a taken-for-granted activity of childhood. The crux of this chapter, then, revolves around the key notion that studying gender and dance means understanding the feminization of theatrical dance in the West. Because dance is viewed as a feminine activity, all males who dance, whether gay or straight, are always in danger of being classified as effeminate, girly, not real men. Approaches for confronting gender bias in dance teaching and curricula have been identified. Central to most of these strategies has been a concerted effort to make gender a conscious variable in all aspects of dance education, and the affirmation of individual differences in gender and culture. In order to cultivate larger male participation, normalizing strategies over the past 5 decades have overly emphasized noteworthy heterosexual male dancers, masculinist comparisons between sport and dance, and have minimized the significant number of male dancers who are non-heterosexual. However, and despite these efforts, participation in Western theatrical dance remains a culturally suspect endeavor for male adolescents and young adult males. Even with the best of intentions, these attempts to encourage young boys and men to pursue dance frequently reproduce narrow, derogatory stereotypes of non-heterosexual male dancers. In previous work and in this chapter, I've criticized these kinds of hegemonic approaches and have advocated for more rigorous questioning and better understanding of homophobic prejudice, dominant notions of masculinity, and societal stigma directed toward boys and male youth in dance. Although postmodern feminist theory has greatly expanded our understanding of multiple and diverse femininities, or ways of being female, contemporary masculinity has become more narrow, as Michael Pollack describes, like a gender straitjacket for boys and men. Most importantly, I've advocated that dance researchers conduct meaningful and relevant research about the experiences of boys and young males currently in dance training and education. Although literature has been limited, the majority of studies have focused on professional male dancers and renowned male choreographers in the field. Therefore, let me turn to my national study in the U.S. that addresses current male experience in Western theatrical dance training, and what the empirical findings of the study tell us about boys' meaning and motivation in dance, as well as the ways in which their dancing challenges gender stereotypes and enlarges ideas about what it means to be male. The purpose of this national study, the largest of its kind in the U.S. to date, was to better understand the experiences of male adolescents and young adult males pursuing dance study at the pre-professional level. As an underrepresented population in Western concert dance training, boys' experiences were investigated in terms of entry, access, retention, and progression in the field, as well as through wider social lenses of gender, masculinity, and homophobia. Male privilege presents another set of unique social challenges to deconstruct, when boys are privileged as male, but marginalized by homophobic stereotypes or non-heterosexual identity. Admittedly, there are obvious social and cultural limitations to this study. My focus on Western concert dance omits a wide range of dance forms and contexts, including ethnic and social forms, creative dance, folkloric, ballroom, recreational dance, hip-hop styles, as well as club, party, and exotic dancing. Without denying the significance of these forms, or the male involvement they garner, I purposely focus on Western concert dance because of its numerous conflicts with dominant Western masculinity. Procedures for this two-phase, 3-year study included an extensive online survey, interviews, focus groups, and field observations of 75 male participants ages 13 to 22 actively pursuing pre-professional dance study across the U.S. Participants were recruited from dance academies, conservatories, private studios, performing arts high schools, and university programs. A comparable group of female dance students, ages 13 to 22, engaged in pre-professional dance training, was also constituted for comparative analysis where applicable. Findings from the first phase of the study indicate that males in dance, especially adolescent boys, continue to experience social isolation and stigma. Parental and family support emerges as pivotal to the entry, retention, and progression of boys in pre-professional dance preparation, while performing, self-expression, and dance as a creative outlet are seen as critical for boys' personal satisfaction and continuance in dance study. The full findings of the first phase of the study are published in my book, Stigma and Perseverance in the Lives of Boys Who Dance, currently in press. This project will turn to a longitudinal case study format in its second phase, following closely the lives of 10 participants over a 3-year period. This format allows closer investigation of gender in relation to race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. The findings will be published by Cambria Press in 2012, tentatively titled Dancing Boys Stories, Case Studies of Moving, Motivation, and Meaning. Let me spend the remainder of this time sharing 2 critical findings from the research data at opposite ends of the spectrum. First, the stigma boys dancing garners, and second, the perseverance males evidence in order to continue dancing. The stigma associated with boys in Western concert dance is long-standing and generally linked to dominant attitudes about dance and gender. More specifically, stigma is tied to males who dance, stereotyping them as effeminate, homosexual, and not real men. In order to better understand this phenomenon, as well as the social isolation that often accompanies it, the survey included a number of questions related to boys' social experiences as male dancers. Participants were asked to complete the sentence, "I think more boys would study dance if," choosing from a number of different answers based on previous research findings on males in dance. With instructions to select all applicable choices, the most selected responses were, if boys weren't teased and harassed so much about dancing, 85%. If parents were more supportive and encouraging, 72%. If boys knew more male friends who dance, 68%. If there were more male role models, 58%. Interestingly, only 8% indicated that more boys would study dance if teachers made dance more like sports. Based on a similar methodology, participants were then asked to complete the sentence, "I think that some boys stopped studying dance because..." The most cited responses were, because boys were tired of teasing and harassment as a male dancer, 80%. Because some people thought they were gay because they studied dance, 76%. And because their parents were not supportive, at 61%. Stigma as an experienced phenomenon was addressed directly in the survey question statement. As a male who studies dance, I have experienced, with 4 possible responses listed and instructions to select all that apply. 96% said teasing and name-calling. 70% reported verbal and/or physical harassment. 33% experienced verbal threats or threatening behavior, and 15% reported physical harm or injury. To summarize data on stigma and social isolation, findings indicate that most males in dance study experience a predominantly female environment with few male peers, encounter a social environment of teasing and verbal and physical harassment based on their status as males in dance, report insufficient support and affirmation for their dancing from parents and male family members, and that their sexual orientation is questioned and repeatedly surveilled. At the other end of the spectrum, my research team and I were interested in learning more about how participants view themselves, what motivates them, and what meaning dance brings to their lives in the context of the stigma and isolation they experience. When asked to complete the sentence, I think of myself as, 32% identified themselves as a ballet dancer, 29% as a dancer, 21% as a modern dancer, 11% as a jazz dancer, 4% as a tap dancer, and also 4% as someone studying to be a dancer. More specifically, adolescent data for 13 to 17-year-olds indicates a leaning toward identifying as a ballet dancer, with being a modern dancer registering significantly lower. Male adolescents may identify themselves as ballet dancers due in part to the popular notion that serious dance study in the U.S. is often training in ballet technique and performance. Identifying as a ballet dancer may also reflect the kind of professional training available for adolescents in general in the U.S. For young boys studying in the pre-professional ballet environment, seeing themselves as anything other than a ballet dancer may be difficult. Data gathered on identity in terms of sexual orientation corroborate findings from previous studies. For 16 to 22-year-olds, 45% self-identified as gay, 39% self-identified as heterosexual, 13% self-identified as bisexual, and 3% chose to pass on the survey question. To understand what motivates young males to pursue and continue serious dance study, the survey asked participants to complete the sentence, "I dance because," by selecting all appropriate answers that apply. The vast majority of participants said, "I like to perform," 95%. "I like to move in the physical challenge," 79%. "Dancing is one place that allows me to be myself," 76%. "And it's a creative outlet for me," 74%. The least selected answer was because it's a lot like sports, at 4%. In comparison, survey data from the Female Comparative Group indicate that girls' and young women's motivation for dance study are prioritized by the 5 following highest responses. Dance is the one place that allows me to be myself. I like to perform. It's a creative outlet for me. I like to move in the physical challenge. And I've danced all my life. The overall data appear to indicate striking similarities between males and females in their motivation to study dance, motivations that are closely tied to self-expression, performance, and creativity. These similarities between males and females run counter to previous discourses over the past 50 years that have positioned male participation and recruitment in traditionally masculine ways, explaining and then encouraging male participation in dance by drawing close parallels between sports and dance, often emphasizing competitive athleticism, while concealing boys' motivation for self-discovery and meaning in expressive artistry. However, there are gender dissimilarities in the desire for moving and physicality made possible in dance. Males reported, "I like to move in the physical challenge of dance," at twice the rate of the female group. At the same time, however, boys in the study also articulated that dance is not a sport, although some did discuss how dancing and dance training require far more skills and expertise than sports activity. Boys in this study proudly see themselves as dance artists, While dance as sports strategies may be effective in the general population, these strategies in the pre-professional realm appear to be unfounded and may be detrimental for young males' sense of identity and self-concept as dance artists. While boys indicated the importance of physical challenge and the desire to move, reducing this kind of satisfaction solely to sport activity reinforces and reproduces narrow masculinist stereotypes. As one of the participants in this study stated, dance is nothing like sports, and male dancers know it. Like their female counterparts, male students are also interested in the creative and artistic aspects of the field. One final comparison from the data is also very important. When asked to describe their overall satisfaction with the amount of care and support they received for dancing, 58% of males reported they were very satisfied or satisfied. 19% indicated they were somewhat satisfied, while nearly 1 in 4 males reported they were dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with the support their dancing garners. Comparative data found females' overall support higher than males, with 72% reporting they were very satisfied or satisfied. Overall dissatisfaction for females was significantly lower than their male peers. In sum, male adolescents rely heavily on support from their best friends in dance and best friends in school, with additional affirmation from their mothers and favorite dance teachers and directors. In contrast, female peers receive most of their support from the family core, mothers and fathers. As a stigmatized and isolated group, males are 8 times more likely than females to report their social support dissatisfaction. In closing, these findings challenge traditional boys will be boys reductive discourses, which reproduce and overvalorize a single way of being a boy. This research indicates an important shift in male adolescents' beliefs regarding masculinity in dance, although they still find themselves limited by social and cultural pressures imposed by family members, male peers, and dance teachers and directors. Teachers are encouraged to use this information about boys' overall desires. Rather than focusing solely on narrow definitions of physical challenge, like jumping higher, turning more, and taking up more space, males are also interested in moving with greater expression and self-discovery in the rehearsal studio and on the concert stage. As teachers and directors, we may need to investigate our own gendered teaching and language and look carefully at whether or not our pedagogies encourage or discourage expressive physical male dancing in our studios and programs. Greater awareness of the hidden curriculum in our own teaching and choreographies reveals that we are teaching gender, as well as dance and gendered ideas about movement. It is my hope that these findings and the book's recommendations will lead us to more humanizing and equitable dance education for all boys and girls.